Hello, happy new year. Happy 2021. We're here, folks. I'm coming to you today from a very cozy house. I'm wearing a really odd outfit, but this is where we are. We're not quite sure what day it is, what we're supposed to be doing. Schools are closed, so, it's all up for grabs, really. Just to set the scene, I'm wearing some kind of Santa pants. I had them in my pregnancy. I'm not quite sure why I'm still wearing them. In fact, I am. They're really comfy. They're brilliant. And then a pink sweatshirt. So they don't really go, but we're going with it. So I firstly wanted to say, I hope Christmas for you brought some rest or joy or basically what you need, or what you needed. It's such a weird time at the moment, and I just want to firstly send you so much love and just to say that I'm here and I'm thinking about you, and I'm just sending lots of positive vibes, and we hope, fingers crossed, 2021 rather, will bring us more of what we want. And I am changed from 2020, and I think so many of us are, and I think this is such a weird moment in time that we will look back on with a slight sense of what was that all about. Anyway, the second thing I want to say is you are so welcome here. And this year for me is about really growing this podcast and really stepping into more of how I can be useful for you. I took the whole of Christmas and New Year off. I barely opened my laptop. It felt very essential for me to do that. I needed it. I needed some time away to reflect, to consider, to rest. Oh my goodness, I've never had so many early nights, and I'm still maybe not quite there where I'm like, right, fifth gear, let's go. I am very much easing into the process, but that feels really good as well. I also wanted to say that in a couple of weeks, this podcast will be 3 years old. So thank you so much for being with me so often. And I love all your messages, and I appreciate all your shares and my guests and you interacting and supporting. And I see everything. And I just want to thank you so much. It really started as something I was so keen to do. Had absolutely no idea how to do it or how to move forward. And I kept running into the living room and speaking to Matt like, I think I want to do a podcast. And he's like, okay, great. What does that mean? What can I do? How can I help? And it's definitely been a process, and I just look forward to building on it and really nurturing it and just seeing where it goes. Also, I noticed the ripple effect of it, and that is what I'm really interested in terms of my intention for the year ahead. I'm really interested in what waves, what ripples can I create in the world? Because one of the things that keeps coming up for me is purpose. What are you here to do? How can you help more people? How can you create more of an impact? And that's not how can I get more people in my sales funnel? It's how can I make a difference to the world that we live in? How can I, this is something that I'm thinking about at the moment, like how can I feed more kids? How can I support people with their mental health? How can I be that champion for more people where they go, do you know what? I think I could actually do that. Like I need a bit of help, but if I did this, this and this, I could actually do more with my life, more of what I love with my life than what I don't. And that for me is really exciting. And you won't hear me talking about big sales months or maybe not flashy clickbaity stuff, because I know that I have a bigger purpose than that. And that's not to say that I've kind of figured this out and I'm like, oh, I'm so above that. I'm not. If you know me, you will know where I'm coming from. that actually it's not the shocking things that I want to say. I'm much more interested in how can I be consistent? How can I go deeper? How can I go broader? How can I go wider? But more of that, I'm sure, will reveal itself as 2020 comes into fruition and I see what that looks like. So when I was considering what I wanted to share with you today, I wanted to... Okay, let me be honest. The first thing I wanted to do was go, right, I'm going to do a podcast every day in January. Let's go. Let's do all the... Because I've always got the ideas, right? Maybe you're the same. And I suddenly just went into full-blown machine mode. And if I am going back to what my goals are and I'll come to that in the second episode, but when I was thinking about my goals, I have to be really careful, and maybe you do as well. I don't know. Let me know if this applies to you. I have to be really careful that I'm building a business that is actually related to my goals, because otherwise I can get really busy. I can get really, I've got a lot of energy, I've got a lot of enthusiasm, I've always got loads of ideas brimming to the surface. So none of that is an issue. I think maybe, I don't know if it's becoming an actor or northern or any of those sort of stuff. I've got a really strong work ethic. But for me, 2021 is not going to be about putting in more hours. It's about the impact. It's about what I said earlier, about going deeper and wider and broader. So actually what I am going to be doing is something slightly different this week to ease you back into this year and to fully support you. And one of the things that keeps coming up for me is storytelling. And that's something that always has been woven throughout my personal brand, because ultimately that's what I am, whether I'm sharing information on a podcast or the Instagram things that I'm doing. As an actor, I'm a storyteller. When I'm a speaker, I always trying to add in analogies that are really going to resonate with the audience. And that is, and with my writing as well, those stories are the basis of how I can be useful. So I have got a bit of a story for you today. There's also a part 2 and 3 of this little segment, this little mini series. So they will be landing with you on Wednesday and Friday of this week. So if you're not subscribed to this, do so, and then you will see it when it goes live on your iTunes or wherever you listen. So the first thing I want to share, I guess, about my 2021 is my word of the year. And I am going to be 40 this year on November the 9th, 2021. My dad is slightly horrified. I think he's much more uneasy about it than I am. And he keeps wanting to tell people that he was some kind of teenage dad. He wasn't. Dad, you were 28 when you had me. Yeah, he's not a teenage dad. But it must be that moment of, he remembers being 40. I remember him being 40. I remember us having a party in our garden where loads of random people came. I remember the food being really good, which is important. I've no idea what it was, but it was quite a big thing. To be 40 at that time was that very typical, life begins at 40, lad, off you go. Or as a woman, it was like, I'm fabulous and I'm 40, even though you were like, I'm not fabulous, I'm from, or, it wasn't necessarily a positive thing. However, I am seeing it as a positive thing. I am thinking I've not even begun my best years yet, because otherwise, if you're thinking constantly like my best years are behind me, blimey, that's a bit depressing. So I'm going the other way. And I'm going to be talking a bit more about this, I'm sure, in other parts of content. And I felt this enormous pressure to, I guess, when I turned 39, of going, right, I've got to do all these things before 40. And actually, I've rewound that and thought, instead of pressuring myself to do X, Y, and Z before I'm 40, why don't I spend this next year making space for what 40 brings. Meaning, where do I need to close things down in my life? Where do I need to put things to bed? Where are the parts in my life that I need to heal or make peace with? And it's getting a little bit personal, but yeah, where are those things in my life that I need to kind of switch down? So it's almost like closing down tabs. That's how I'm viewing it in terms of a computer. So I'm ready for my exciting software upgrade that maybe when 40 comes and the software upgrade comes, I'll have a few months going, I'm not really sure what this is all about. Oh, the other one was much easier. But I'm really easing into it. I'm really excited. So when I had this in the back of my mind, I was thinking about what my word was going to be for this year. And the word that I came up with was fly. And as soon as I landed on this word, I felt that excitement in my belly. And I think that is a key to your word of the year, if you do indeed do that, where you have to emotionally connect with it. It's like an energetic firework where you land on that thing and you just go, oh, yes. It's kind of like if you're choosing an outfit or if you go shopping to purchase something particular in mind, whether it's a new perfume and you suddenly smell this thing and you're like, oh, that's it. That's the one. Or you suddenly try on a new jacket or a dress or a new pair of shoes and you have that moment where you go, there, that's it. And that's how I came to connect with this word fly. And fly is a interesting one for me because it does sound very floaty and maybe U2 is playing in the background, but it was deeper than that for me. Because, again, if I can be personal with you, if I can be candid, I feel like for a lot of my life, I've worked really hard. And going back to that work ethic thing again, that I've really built some really solid foundations. And that sense of building solid foundations, it takes you a while to get to that place. And if I can lean into the most exciting years of my life are to come and choosing to be in that place, I want to get to a place where I fully trust all the work that I have done up until this point has been for a reason, and now I can fly. So there's some kind of statistic about an aeroplane leaving and getting into the air that it uses, and you can Google this for yourself. I'm sorry, I should have done this beforehand, but there's a way, there's something around an aeroplane using a huge amount of fuel just to get off the ground. And then once it's in the air, it can really enjoy being in flight. And that's what that has been for me, that kind of process. And I debated whether I was going to share that with you because there's part of me, of course, that is very awake to the fact that there is a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. And I resisted that moment of saying, well, you know, should I say this on a podcast? And is it self-indulgent to be sharing what my word of the year is? Like, because I have no idea what's ahead. And I want you to know that I'm sharing this from a place that I know that there is stuff going on in the world, but I really hope that there will be a way that you can continue, albeit slower, with what you want to be, do, and have. And in terms of COVID, for me, it is very close at the moment. And it's very close in my family. And this is not something I'm going to go into because it's not mine to share. But please know that I am talking about this within this context of understanding the sense of what's going on in the world. And I'm not coming at it from a point of just think positive, guys, off we go, in a sort of Alan Partridge way. I'm really not. So I wanted then to talk about the law of attraction and how it works for me. Because there's been dozens and dozens of books written about it. And I guess the simplest way that I use it is about it being an energetic match. And what I mean by this is, what do you need to do to be ready for the opportunity? And if you were, for example, thinking about, let's think about how I would use it in terms of an acting job. So how I would use it practically is an acting job. So say a really big role, a really exciting role on, Coronation Street came in. Great. A regular, they want to offer a 5-year contract, 100 grand a year, happy days, all the opportunities. You're going to be playing like a baddie or somebody who's going to shake up the street. Those kind of ones. So in order to be an energetic match for that, I need to do the things practically that are going to show that I'm ready. So by the time I go in for that casting, even though underneath I might be nervous or I might be thinking, oh my goodness, Coronation Street, here we go, what's happening? I will have focused on those things of how can I show that I'm considered in terms of my preparation. How can I show that I've made an informed choice about what I'm going to do as the character? How can I show that I have really done my research and I'm really familiar with the style? Because, Coronation Street, you might think, oh, I know what that is. Like with EastEnders, I know what it is. But the tone slightly changes, depending on year or season on season or what's happening. I would also be thinking about how can I show stamina and professionalism. So even though I would maybe be going in as an unknown, I need to show them that I'm up to speed, that I am not a risk, that I can do this. And so that is for me how the law of attraction works in a practical way. And that's not to say that there have been times when I've used it and some people go, I just don't like you. I don't think you're talented, or I don't think this is going to be good, or there's somebody better, or somebody else has a preference. But what I'm thinking about constantly is building. So the more of these meetings that you have, at some point, then one of them's going to stick or one of them's going to happen. Likewise, if you're selling your services online, the more sales conversations you're going to have, the more information you're going to gain about what you need to do or what you want to do or what your next steps maybe are. So that's what I want to think about. That, I guess, for me was really important at the beginning of 2021 of how I'm going to make this or invite this law of attraction thing to work for me. Now, as a starting point, one of the things that I do when I'm considering what's next or opening a chapter, I always go back to this phrase that a casting director once told me, a guy called Matt Selby, lovely guy. And he works on the basis of make yourself feel good and you will do good. And he is heavily into self-development and really is considered in the way that he interacts with actors. He's very different, I guess, in terms of the people that I've met over the years in the industry. He's very alert to the fact that people have needs or there's a new way to do it. That's, I guess, how I would kind of describe it. So when I'm thinking about these things of what's next, I try and start with me and understanding what makes me work best. And the question that I ask myself, and I invite you to do the same, is what makes me unstoppable? Now, that word unstoppable might not fit in with you at the moment. You might be like, whoa, Nikki, I don't want to be unstoppable. I just want to survive. I just want to put one foot in front of the other. So change that word for whatever you want it to be. Unstoppable for me, I mean, it's really Billy Basic, really. Great sleep. Like when I have sleep, it's a game changer. It makes me feel like a completely different human. And the other day, I had no sleep and it's just so hard. And I had to say to my family, like, Mummy's really tired today. Mummy is not going to be probably much fun. I'm going to need a big nap in the day. And so great sleep. Running is one of those things, and we'll go into this a bit more in just a second. Running, once I found this thing, it changed everything for me. And when I do it, it makes me feel really good. Actually doing the thing makes me feel unstoppable. So when we're in this moment of like, what's next? I'm not really sure what to do. I don't know how to move forward. That doesn't make me feel unstoppable. Doing the thing does. Sending the email, making the podcast today, showing up, doing that thing on my computer that I have been putting off, whatever it might be, doing the thing. And another thing that came to mind was seeing other people do brilliant things. So one of the things that I've noticed is when I'm going to that next level, I really need to notice people who have done it before, or they've had moments of moving through adversity and they've become a really great inspiration that I go, whoa, look at that. Yes. And sometimes that moment of, well, if she can do it, maybe I could do it. And playing with that phrase starts to become really exciting. So I woke up on January the 1st of this year, the 1st of the 1st, 21. And even though I wasn't immediately drawn to, let's do this 2021, woo, yeah, I had an underlying bubbling of, come on then. If you want what you want, you're going to have to make some moves. It almost felt like a weird reality TV star coming through a set of curtains going, yes, Nikki. So you've been talking about this idea for a while, yes? And you're doing the same things again and again, and you're expecting the results to be different. They're not going to be. So even though on the outside I was not jumping out of bed, I was not energized, I was not running around my house desperate to get this party started, I knew that I had a bubbling, like, come on then, let's do this. And I've also understood and witnessed and experienced the power of not dabbling. So when I dabble, I'm giving myself excuses, or everything's a bit non-negotiable, the time scales are a bit out. And as I'm saying this, you might be like, all right, Nikki, we're living through a pandemic. Like, let's give ourselves the gift of kindness and all the rest of it. Yes, I completely agree with this. But equally, I know as a qualified coach that these tools work. So I'm kind of coming from that point of view of all the benefits that come from not dabbling, all the benefits for going all in. And there's always a question when you go all in. that I ask myself, where or what will I lose? Because sometimes there is some security, some safety, some comfort from staying the same. And because there have been times in my life when I've made bold moves, when I've chosen to do something different, there have been sacrifices or there have been losses. Whether that's a moment of suddenly not being invited to something because you weren't available last time, so suddenly you're off the list, or suddenly not feeling like you're in the in-crew anymore because you want something different, or you have a new set of values and things that are important to you. So I'm not saying any of this is easy. I mean, you've probably figured this out, right, already. You've figured it out that even though all the books and all the stationery tells us on the first day of the whole year that things are going to be different, actually nothing's going to change unless you change. I heard Rachel Rodgers say that, and it plonked on my head right between my eyes like I don't know what. If you don't change, let me just get this phrase right. Nothing will change unless you do. So it was the first of the first 21. So what was I going to do? How was I going to start the year? And of course, I started the year by hugging my kids, making breakfast for people, having a moment to reply to messages. It wasn't just a moment of creeping out the house. You know, I have other responsibilities and stuff that was in this around this moment. So I'm sure you know that. I just wanted to make this clear. So going back to what makes me unstoppable, over the last year, I would say, as Luna was born in August 2019. So as soon as I felt that, I guess the second pregnancy was different. As soon as I felt that I had healed and that it was safe to do so, and I'd gone through all my medical checks and all the rest of it, I needed that sunlight on my face. So actually, having an August baby, I really enjoyed that Indian summer sunlight of walking around. So in terms of getting outside, getting my heart beating, wanting to go back to running, it was much quicker this time around. And as the months have gone on, I've started to upgrade things slowly. So I've started to invest in a bit more kit, some more supportive bras, let's just say. Also for my birthday, Matty got me some really great headphones, these Bluetooth ones, and they kind of wire around your head. My mum also bought me some Sweaty Betty socks, which are about 15 quid, which seem crazy for a pair of socks. But Sweaty Betty, if you're listening, those socks are excellent, because my trainers are probably about 8 years old. I bought them in New York and they definitely need upgrading, but these socks, they seem to work. Trainers are next on my list, by the way. Also, I really started to pay attention to my step count and like making sure I was moving every day, because sometimes it's easy not to, or sometimes all you do is the nursery run or the school run or something like that. And especially in lockdown as well, sometimes you just have to, we've had moments where we've needed to isolate, and the walk and the move didn't get in. But then the big guy came out. And what I mean by that is I got a Fitbit for Christmas. I wasn't expecting one, but I had been talking about it. But I was thrilled on Christmas Day to find that I got one. And since Christmas, I've really enjoyed playing around with it. And I've since become a bit of a Fitbit nerd, to say the least. Anyway, I worked out fairly quickly that you could set it to 5K, 10K or 15K and beyond. But we're not in the beyond bit yet, but we might be. And I've run 5k before. I've run 10k, not very often, but I'd never run 15k. But over the last few weeks, I've really started to go much more frequently. And a couple of weeks ago, I managed to get up to about 13.5k. And I couldn't believe it. I just was in shock. Like, oh, wow, this, okay. Oh, I've got a bit of power in my legs that I didn't realise. So I started to think and play around with the idea of setting a new normal. And I thought, what a way to begin 2021 by starting with a 15k. Something that I've never done before, but something that I felt excited about, connected to, and thought, if I start on day one with this, I'm setting a really good benchmark for myself. Because there's something about running for me, going back to this unstoppable thing, that says I bet on myself, that I'm worth it, that I get a huge amount of good hormones, good vibes from myself of like, yes, you did it. You carved out that time. You got that headspace that you needed. So I decided on that morning that I was going to do that. Firstly, I thought, right, what's going to set me up practically? So I wore my best kit. And I was like that kid at a school disco. You know, when you wear all your best things all together, even though they might not match. That was me. So I had some really great, strong thermal leggings on. I had my favourite thermal top on. I had a new vest. I had my best bra. I had a running jacket that Matty lent me that's really good and keeps you snug. I put my phone into full charge. My headphones were full charge. So was my Fitbit. I was all set to go practically. And then I considered what was going to help me emotionally. And this is the thing. This is the thing that you can apply with any goal, any new chapter, any new year, whatever you want to call it. You have to connect with it emotionally. Otherwise, it's just something being ticked off a list. Otherwise, it's just another to-do. Or it's something that will get done one day, but you don't really feel that pull, that impetus to actually do it. So I started to think about what was going to help me connect emotionally. And it came quite quickly. I started to think about King's Cross. And King's Cross is quite an important place to me because it's the place that I used to come into as a kid when I was coming down to London. It was the place that I would leave when I was going back up north on holidays or to see family. It was always that sense of getting off a train into London life or into my old life. And it's a very significant place for me because there were definitely times when I got into King's Cross and I had that buzz. I had that sense of like, I'm meant to be here. Like I've been dreaming about living in London all my life and I'm here and I can't believe it. And I did it. So King's Cross is an important place for me. So I looked at it on the map and it was about 7.5k from my house. Perfect, I thought. Okay, so there to King's Cross and back is going to be my 15k. But I didn't want to do the same route on the way back and going. So I started to think about an interesting way that I could make my way back. So I kind of had an idea in my head. I don't quite want to say exactly where I live, so I'm just going to keep it loose. But you might be able to figure it out based on what I was saying. Anyway, very quickly, as I started going with this, I started to notice that the route I had picked was full of connection, emotion, a sense of what had gone before, and the chapters, I guess, of my life. Not all of them, but some significant ones. So I passed the signpost for the hospital where my kids were born, the town hall where they were both registered, the nights out in Islington that I would have with my girlfriends, where we would be, they just filled me with such joy of like girls' nights out or going to gigs, or really Upper Street for me was definitely that place of like discovering new cafes and restaurants and having coffee with people and ending up in crazy bars that you're listening to bands that you didn't know about and just, I don't know, having crazy fun nights. Also, there's a very glamorous location where the 43 bus stops, which is outside a kebab shop. And at the time, Matt was living at the end of the 43 bus route. And it was that moment of, am I going to get on this bus with this man tonight? Or am I going to go in the opposite way? I was living in South London, and it was outside that kebab shop, kids, that I was like, I'm going to get on that bus. Also, I passed a place where I did one of the most important theatre shows I've ever been part of. I also passed a restaurant, although it's not there in its form anymore, but the building's still there. A restaurant where I went to when I was 16, and my uncle, his parents, his mum is still alive. Unfortunately, his dad died about 5 or 6 years ago. A really lovely, supportive, caring, warm, even though they're not my blood relatives, a real extension of my family, cared very much for them. Mike and Mary, they're called. And when I came down to London when I was 16, I stayed with them for a week. And it allowed me to go to a drama school. And there was one night, I think it was like the Wednesday night, where they took me up into Islington and we went to a restaurant. And again, it was another one of those memories of piecing together those parts of my lives that have brought me to this point. But it wasn't all singing and dancing and glorious times. Like, I saw the wall near King's Cross that I slid down, absolutely heartbroken, even though I'd done the dumping, and saying to my mum, like, I didn't want her to go back home. I wanted her to stay with me. And like, I just didn't know what to do with myself. I know that wall so well. Also, the streets that I used to walk along, I'd walk home from work, like trying to find the answers, trying to figure out what the heck I was doing with my life, trying to figure out how I was going to pay rent that month, or how I was going to ever get to a place where it felt easy. Those streets sort of became my friend. They became, sounds incredibly sad, doesn't it? But they really took care of me. And they helped me to find some answers that have brought me to where I am today. Also, the cafe I went to when I didn't get the job. In my 20s and in my 30s and probably in my 40s, there's a lot of things that I go for that I don't get. In fact, I don't even hear that I don't get. I just don't hear anything. It's something that comes into my inbox. It's something that is a date in my diary. It's an opportunity, and then it's gone. So suddenly, when I was thinking, just before I set off on this route, suddenly the route started to feel really powerful, and I could visualize it. And not only could I visualize what it would look like if I was driving it, or if I was in a cab or on a bus or something like that, I started to be able to visualize me running it, because it made sense. It made sense what it would look like in terms of taking the steps. And I knew that I could easily do 7.5k to King's Cross. And then all I had to do was do it back. Easy. I knew the way. I just had to keep putting one foot in front of the other. And as I left, I said to Matt, well, even if I don't run it all, I'm going to walk it. It'll be fine. It might take me a while, might see you at lunchtime, but we'll see how we go. And he said to me, are you going to take your Oyster card? What's going to happen? What's going to happen if you get too tired? And I said, I'm not going to take my Oyster card. Because if I do, it will be too tempting. It would be too tempting to jump on the bus, jump on the tube back, to take the easy option. And I want to see what this year looks like if I go for the hard option. And more importantly, what does this year bring if I go for the option that I really, really want? And that was what I wanted. I wanted to complete it. I wanted to run it. So I set off. And even though it was New Year's Day, everyone was sleeping. And it was actually quite eerie. Like, I was the only person out running for ages. Like, there were a couple of people on bikes, people sort of wandering home or going places, but it certainly wasn't busy. And the first kind of main stop, I passed Cali Road or Caledonian Road tube station. So I took a picture and I sent it to Matt and the kids, just saying, I made it this far. Guess what happened that day? I ended up doing 17k, not 15, 17. And guess what? I surpassed my personal best. So I ran the furthest I've ever run in my life. Plus, I checked my stats. Not only did I run the furthest I'd ever run in my life, I got my personal best on my 5k. I got my personal best on my 10k. And I was back way quicker than I thought I was going to do. And that took a few minutes to process. That started to become really exciting to me. So I got back and I was full of beans, and I was saying to Matt and the kids, like, I want to do a half marathon, or like, when do you think the London Marathon's going to be available? I really want to be part of it. I was really excited and enthused by this process. And it felt like a really wonderful thing to do. Now, if you're thinking today on the 4th of January, like, oh, I haven't done that, I haven't even thought about what I'm doing, it's all good. You've got time. You can do this imperfectly. But I wanted to share why I'm sharing this and what I've learned. 2020 for me was truly the moment, I mean, it's only taken me nearly 40 years, that movement is non-negotiable for me. If I want my brain and my body and my outlook on life to work, to be the way that I want it to be, movement has to be part of that. It's a non-negotiable. So it's not about losing weight or being summer body ready or just moving so I can have an extra glass of wine. No, it has to be as important as the breakfast that I put in my body every single morning. Number 2, find something that works, or lots of things that work for you, and use them, because they will always be there for you. So the fact that this running malarkey has come to me, and even though I've been running for like the last 10 years, I've really realized what a lovely mate it is to me. It's always going to be there. It's there whenever I need it. If I need creativity, if I need inspiration, if I need to heal something, if I need to release something, if I need to get clarity on something, it's there. What is that thing for you that really works? Do that. Make it a non-negotiable. And it's not something that goes to the bottom of the pile if you have time to do all the other things. So running has to be up there for me. Me taking care of myself alongside my family, they have to go hand in hand. Because if I'm not working at, I would never say to my kids, right, you eat all the breakfast and I'm not going to eat anything. I know so many families at the moment that, food that's just such a different story for another day. But my goodness, the amount of poverty that we have in this country, And it just breaks my heart every single time that people are having to make these decisions. It's them or it's me. Find a way, if you can, to say me too, me as well. Susie Redding has a really great book on self-care, and also she was podcast episode number 3. So if you want to find out more about that, it'll be really useful. Consider your own ripple effect. So if you do the thing that you say that you're going to do, if you get to a point where you say, I'm not going to dabble anymore, I'm really going to consider what this looks like in the full out picture, think about that ripple effect. So, for example, going back to the running example, when I run in the rain, it gives me a sense of empowerment of I did it anyway. I did it even though it was hard. I did it even though it would have been easy not to. And also what it says is you are important. So for you, whether that is reading one book in January or making sure that you have 2 nights a week where you make sure you have a bath in silence using all your favorite things that you want to have in there, or making sure that 2 or 3 times a week that you're getting up early and you're dedicating that time to having a stretch in the morning, or whatever it might be. Consider that ripple effect. You're not just going to get the short-term benefits of this, you're going to see that ripple effect in all areas of your life. If you can do that thing, you can do other things. So one of the things that I was really thinking about is visualizing my big goal for this year. And as I was running along, and with every K that went past, I visualized myself being closer to this big goal. Like, yes, it's closer. If I can run it, I can create it. And every step that I took, I imagined myself getting closer and turning up that brightness of that picture. So consider whether that could be a walk or something like that. How can you use this? And finally, what I want to say at the end of this part 1 is we know that 2020 has shaken the whole world upside down in ways that we can process and ways that we cannot. And the only thing, I guess, that we know to be sure is that we only get one shot. So therefore, if you've only got one life and time is moving anyway and things are happening, you have to be you. You have to do and be and have all the things that feel like you, that truly lift you up, your version. No excuses, no apologies, no rules, no somebody told me I couldn't. I want to invite you at the end of this to really bring your awareness up to the conversations around you, but also those conversations within you. Where are you holding yourself back? Where are you playing small? Where are you saying, well, I'll start tomorrow? Where are you saying, I've got to do X, Y, and Z before I'll be ready? Now, of course, there are times where there are better times. And you're an adult listening to this, and you will know what your ideal or more ideal scenario will be. So the week before I had my daughter in August 2019, I was not going, I'm going to launch a program. I'm going to launch a brand new coaching program. No. I was like, I'm going to sit in my own sweat on my sofa. Oh, being pregnant in a summer was, not glamorous. I was not looking like the woman in the John Lewis catalogue. So as you're listening to this, you might be like, yeah, do you know what? January is still going to be this time where I've got my kids at home, where I need to homeschool and I need to fully concentrate on that. Yes, do that. Absolutely. but also be open to the ideas, to the thoughts, to the actions, to the moves, to the little sprinkles of inspiration that are coming your way, because they are. And a coach of mine once told me that your desires are meant for you. And that really struck me. That really gave me a sense of, oh yeah, the things that I want are really specific. The things that connect and the things that draw me and pull me forward have a name. So I've never had an urge to go, do you know what? I would absolutely love to drive a tractor. It's not a desire of mine. But for some people, I mean, my son would be like, yes, that's exactly what I want to do. So pay attention to your desires. What do you want? Imagine if they were there already, just waiting for you to give them a little knock. It's almost that thing when you used to think about 90s game shows with kids where you'd have to like knock the box and the confetti would come out and the star would come out and you'd have to find the star. Imagine if that was your desire, that it was already just in a box, all there. You just have to take the walks towards it, give it some knocks, use some power, take some action, meet that universe halfway, and the star just needs to drop down. Imagine what that would look and feel like, and what would be the action that you're going to take. So that is the end of part 1. And I would love to know where you want to go next with this and what action you're going to take. Because as you will hear throughout the podcast, lots of things that I'm going to be sharing with you, even though they're stories, I don't want you just to absorb them. And I don't want it to be about me. You know, you might be thinking like, oh, running is not going to be for me, so I'm not really sure how I would apply it. What is going to be for you? What's going to put you into that state of being unstoppable or being fearless or going for it, or however you identify with it? What's going to do that? Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to have a cup of tea and I will be with you again on Wednesday. Thank you so much for listening. If you know somebody who might benefit from this, who would find it inspiring, or you just want to, I don't know, move into running and you've got a mate that could maybe do with a bit of encouragement, send this episode their way. I would really appreciate it. And also come over to Instagram, DM me at Nikki Raby. Let me know where you're listening, what worked for you, what struck a chord, and please share the episode if you wouldn't mind. And I will see you again very soon. Lots of love and Happy New Year.